Evening, everyone. So let's call the meeting to order and let's do a pledge. Flags behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right. So, as I understand it, there's an accident on the bridge westbound, which has caused all the traffic to back up in Beacon, among other places. But somehow you all got here. So, in terms of roll call, I see Molly, Jeff, Amber, Lee's here, Paloma, George. Pam, I believe you're online?
Yes, I'm online.
Okay, and that's full roll. And then I see the city administrator here, and I think the city attorney is online.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I think Ward Rose will convene, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so let's do public comments first. Is there a hearing tonight? There are a couple of hearings tonight. So two of them concern property tax exemptions for senior citizens and disabled persons with limited income. And then there's also a public hearing on a community block development grant. If you'd like to speak on those, please hold your remarks. The first opportunity for public comments is general commentary. So other than those topics, you can talk on anything you like. And I'll start with Teresa Kraft.
Good evening. I'd like to request that you bring back the detailed minutes. Following the minutes online is fruitless. There is no paper trail, and watching videos to find information is next to impossible. We have done this city a great disservice by allowing cookie-cutter building design to erode our historic landscape. Our landmark preservation oversight barely exists. We are allowing builders to strip away any detail from today's construction. What's described on a real estate listing as a restoration is a gut rehab. These buildings are being replaced by plain boxes, all looking the same. They represent the aesthetic values of their respective eras. The old houses exemplifies how a modest vernacular cottage can enhance any streetscape through its pleasing mass and well-considered proportions. In contrast, these feeble replacements reflect our current dehumanizing age. We have lost even the modest ornamentation found on the original. There are no column bases or capitals on the stunted, crude supports of a porch. No interplay of light on the traditional lattice underneath, and no shadow lines on the moldingless cornices, which appears as unresolved as a child's drawing. The big box generic front doors and budget windows stare blankly at our community, emphasizing the cold, lifeless proportions of the entire structure. How is it that a farmhouse once considered rustic by fashionable Victorian city dwellers who came up here can be so much more sophisticated than a 21st century building designed by an architectural firm? The answer is simple. 19th century carpenter builders utilized pattern books created by architects who had mastered their craft through traditional methods, including proper drafting skills and careful measurements of existing buildings. In contrast, today's postmodernist architects often lack these fundamental drafting skills and get them produced by AI or in China. And some have not even measured a historic structure. And some have gotten lost along the way. Buildings cannot lie. Today's practitioners may get away with these poor designs as long as residents of Beacon do not protect their irreplaceable past and fail to demand better for their collective future. Last week I overheard somebody who's been in Beacon for a dozen years telling people in the room that the middle of Main Street used to have tall buildings too, but they tore those down and put up lower buildings, modern buildings, and said they thought it was okay because people are coming and putting up taller buildings again. That's all the more reasons that we need to have a Beacon Museum in the center of Main Street at the old firehouse. I do not want to see it become Monopolyville, and you know those two names that I'm putting together. We might as well just change the name of Beacon today. Watching this council table, we can see it's an election year. I'd advise the residents to keep their ears to the ground and get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Johanna Funnel.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm reading this because I won't be able to get it all in if I don't. I've spoken here before on the need for bike lanes on 52, and I'm here to do so once again. But before I get into that, I want to clarify why I'm continuing to speak up on this issue. It is not solely because I'm a current cyclist that uses 52. I am not simply asking for accommodations for myself and others like me. I am speaking at council because I believe that the City of Beacon can and should be thinking much more seriously about developing an active transportation network. That is to say, encouraging more people to make more daily journeys by bike or foot. We could be doing so much more to encourage cycling within Beacon. There is US data to support the fact that the majority of a given population is open to cycling for transportation, but you first have to make people feel comfortable and less stressed about doing so, particularly by developing more bike infrastructure. And so why should we care about getting more people on bikes? There are many reasons, but in particular, I want to point out that Beacon continually faces difficult issues around development, congestion, and parking. And I know the council has recently made some decisions around reducing parking minimums, but unless we think more seriously about actively managing transport demand, rather than simply manipulating parking supply, we won't have solved anything long term. So I believe that the promotion of biking is an essential strategic tool within city planning. Thinking about walkability is great, but in my opinion, it's not entirely sufficient to create meaningful change in the reduction of personal vehicle miles. So let's take 52. For many residents, and I'm thinking particularly of wards 2 and 4 here, getting to businesses along 52, such as the Red Pepper Diner, Industrial Arts, Mountain View Dentists, are all between 2 and 2.5 miles away from home. That's just a little too far for a lot of people to consider walking. So I doubt we'll see much volume switch from cars to foot journeys, no matter how extensive the sidewalk we build. On the other hand, bikes are perfect for that distance. You can get to those businesses in around 15 minutes. So bike lanes on 52 simply seems like a no-brainer to me. I know that some of you will say, the rail trail, back to me. But as I and other people have said before, this cannot fully be the answer. Although the rail trail will undoubtedly be used by some people for some transportation journeys, it does not fully meet the demand for a robust active transportation network. I'll end on a personal plea, even though I said this wasn't personal. Please don't put on-street parking on 52. This won't be a status quo outcome for current cyclists. It makes things exponentially worse because you will be removing the shoulder that's currently there. So you're forcing cyclists to choose either being doored by careless stationary drivers or being rear-ended by being pushed when we're pushed out into the lane by trucks and cars. You will be running us off the road, whether literally or metaphorically at this point. Who's to tell? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Meg Lazarus?
I think she's stuck in traffic.
Okay.
She sent me her notes, and I will read those that she drafted earlier.
I do see Meg Lazarus raised her hand online.
Oh, is she there? Good.
Okay, so we'll take that when we go to online, and we'll just pass on this right now, but we'll get back to her in just a minute. Okay, so Christine Wang?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, City Council. I'm reading for Sergei Krasikov, Ward 3, who couldn't be here. You have heard me talking about Fishkill Avenue as cyclist. Today, I want to give you my perspective as a driver. Almost every morning, I drop my daughter off at the middle school, then go left on Fishkill Avenue to drive to One Nature Nursery, just outside city limits, exactly the stretch we have been debating about. Every morning, in any weather, I encounter at least one, but usually more cyclists going towards the city. Pretty clear they don't do it for fun, but because a bicycle is the only means for them to go to work. Some of them would cycle in the direction of the traffic, some against, weaving in and out of the shoulders, avoiding potholes, cars parked at lengths, and random garbage. On quite a few occasions, I came very close to colliding with the cyclists, either because of their unpredicted maneuvers, low visibility in the fog or rain, swerving to avoid an incoming vehicle crossing into my lane, only to discover a cyclist on my right in dark clothes and no lights. Of course, I'm not here to seek your sympathy or complain about the cyclists. I'm here to make a point about how the lack of safe bike infrastructure affects not only the cyclists, but the drivers as well. These cyclists are on the road today, tomorrow, and every day from now till potentially distant future when the rail trail is built. Personally, I'm very excited for the rail trail, but it is not a panacea, and it doesn't address the issues we're facing now. Issues we can address with dedicated and protected bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue. Also, on-street parking on Fishkill Avenue brought up at the last City Council workshop. While I'm receptive to the argument that narrowing traffic lanes reduces speed, indeed it does. Elimination of the shoulders will make cycling drastically more dangerous, as it will push cyclists to directly compete for the road space with drivers. I have been assaulted by drivers while cycling on our main street. They drove a foot behind my rear wheel with their hand on the horn and yelling obscenities at me. And mind you, I'm a fairly strong and fast cyclist. Imagine the road rage if a young family, older folks, people with injuries try to cycle in the traffic lane on Fishkill Avenue during rush hours. Another major issue with adding parking along Fishkill Avenue, cyclists getting doored.
15 seconds.
When the drivers or passengers open the door without checking if there is anyone behind them. I got doored twice, including by NYPD. Trust me, not fun. I want to ask the council to weigh in carefully the effects of your decisions upon a various group of the residents and visitors to our city.
Thank you. Thomas Wright.
Good evening. Thomas Wright, 24 Grove Street, Beacon Bicycle Coalition. Please follow the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee's recommendation to prohibit drive-throughs in the Fishkill Avenue corridor that was presented to the council in the January 27th workshop. Also, please review the memo from the Conservation Advisory Committee and its rationale for recommending the prohibition of drive-through that was sent to the council. Please also remember the Climate Act of New York State and its recommendations for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by incorporating non-vehicular mobility into planning. And as you're thinking about the very real and negative safety and climate impacts of drive-throughs, please also consider bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue. We have seen in the engineering drawings prepared for the reworking of Fishkill Avenue corridor that there is ample room in the right-of-way for buffered bike lanes. We urge the city of Beacon to use this space to incorporate buffered bike lanes into the roadway work. There has been some discussion about offering on-street parking along this part of Fishkill Avenue. On-street parking should absolutely be rejected in the Fishkill Avenue zone, as it would make already dangerous biking conditions far worse and in fact untenable by removing the shoulder. Instead of setting aside space for cars to make it easier to drive instead of walk or bike, reserve this space instead for buffered bike lanes. With buffered bike lanes in the Fishkill Avenue zone, we achieve improved safety, reduced reliance on cars, and reduced pollution that comes from people choosing biking over driving. We achieve improved quality of life. If you only remember one thing about these comments, it is this: plan for people, not for cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne Carruthers.
Good evening. I don't have prepared remarks. I just wanted to share an anecdote that surprises me every time it happens, which is that I'll be walking down the street and run into somebody that I know doesn't particularly follow city council goings-on very closely, and I'm stunned at how often they say, "We're so glad that we have a bike coalition and that you guys are raising transportation issues at City Council, because we've wanted to see changes for a long time." So I just wanted to pass that on, that we come and we share our knowledge of biking and our experiences, because we know we have broad public support. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Mowat.
Hello, thank you. I'm a resident of Beacon, and I'm here at City Council meeting for the very first time to speak in support of something that my family and I care a lot about, which is protected bike lanes along Fishkill Avenue. My family and I live within 5 minutes of the 52 corridor, and since arriving here, we have so enjoyed biking to places like Ron's and Memorial Park and Tracks and Roma Pizza and the Yard, all places that it would not have been so easy to walk to. And now that our son is a student at Beacon High School, he bikes to school and around town every day. And frankly, my husband and I worry about him a lot. We just very much want him to be safe on his bike, and we want the same for all of his friends and all of our cycling neighbors. And so I believe that protected bike lanes and no on-street parking alongside Fishkill are vital to this. And furthermore, I believe that there are a few better ways to make Fishkill Avenue a thriving commercial corridor than to allow cyclists and families and people without cars to be able to do errands and bike and enjoy that corridor without feeling in threat of their lives. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Michael Patrick?
I don't have any prepared notes. I just wanted to bring attention to people living with disabilities and limited income, and also try to lobby a little bit for more affordable housing in Dutchess County. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rachel Smucker?
Hello. I'm a Beacon resident and homeowner. I am also here in support of the bike lanes on Route 52. I know this has been discussed as part of the Fishkill Concepts Committee's work. I am personally invested in this because I do not have a car. I walk, bike, e-bike, and take the bus everywhere I can. Having bike lanes on Route 52 would make a huge difference in my life personally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same address, Don, hard to see what your last name is, but let us know.
My name is Don Romaniello. I'm also a Beacon resident, and I'm speaking in support of bike lanes on 52 and bike lanes in general. We do not have a car. We are a carless household. The amount that we would spend on a car is roughly the amount we pay in property taxes. Which is to say that if we had a car, we wouldn't be able to live in Beacon. So the option is we could either get a car and send that $1,000 a month to Detroit and overseas and to Hartford for insurance, and maybe a little bit goes to a mechanic locally, or we could send it here. Lights look great. So I want to speak highly in support of more extensive biking infrastructure, less car reliance, giving people options, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the public audience, the physical public, want to make a comment other than the public hearings? Sure, come on up, tell us who you are, where you live.
Hello, Joe Brian Applegate, live in Ward 4, and I would also like to speak to the council on the importance of, I guess, bike lanes on Route 52 and more comprehensive transit planning in general. You know, I live in Beacon largely because it's a city where I can get to most all of my needs through walking or biking. You know, expanding that to the Route 52 corridor, especially if there are projected to be a large number of residents that are going to be moving in at one end of the corridor or along it. You know, I think we should start planning for that now, and we should also keep in mind the city's you know, leadership and commitment to you know, the climate and to equity in you know, providing alternative modes of transportation to our residents. Potential of replacing the shoulder on Route 52 with side parking would make that stretch of road even more dangerous for cyclists than it already is. And would exacerbate the already car-centric planning in the city. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, no one else in the physical public? All right, so now let's go online for comments. Ben?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment this evening, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining by phone, you can press *9. Lastly, if you're joining us on YouTube, you will actually need to join us on Zoom instead. You can do so by visiting beaconny.gov and finding the link on our community calendar. Mayor, right now we have 3 hands raised, first of which is Meg Lazaros. Meg, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Hi there. Meg Lazarus, Ward 1 resident and member of Beacon Climate Action Now and Beacon Bicycle Coalition. I'm speaking to advocate for a bike master plan for the city of Beacon and to urge that bike infrastructure be prioritized as planning and development move forward on Fishkill Avenue. As I've become more involved in the bike coalition, I've tried to understand how we've reached this point where building bike infrastructure feels like a radical idea. The benefits of bikeable and walkable cities are really well documented, from positive environmental impacts to stronger community connections, reduced crime, greater independence for children and young adults, increased home value, like the list goes on and on. But despite these advantages, people-centric cities are disappearing across America, and we've sadly normalized car dependency, and we don't really give much thought to alternatives. And being a car-dependent city is not the same as being car-free. The goal isn't to eliminate cars here, it's to create an environment where people can live without needing one, and where residents might even prefer not having a car at all, if done correctly. And a bike master plan goes beyond just adding bike lanes. It's about making cycling a safe and accessible and viable choice through infrastructure improvements, safety measures, and long-term planning. We're now 8 years out from the 2017 City of Beacon Comprehensive Plan, which explicitly calls for bike infrastructure. I'm just going to point out a few places where that happens. Page 24, 2017 Comprehensive Plan goals, Transportation Section 5.0 says, develop an integrated and efficient transportation system to assure the effective and economic movement of people and goods within and through Beacon, including public transportation, pedestrian, and bicycle systems. Page 95, letter E, transportation goals, consider developing bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue. And the conclusion of the plan reinforces this need, stating, there is general support for improved pedestrian and bicycle facilities in the city. Many residents expressed the need for a bicycle plan. So we have the opportunity to create a safer, more connected, and more livable Beacon. The Bike Master Plan isn't just a vision, it's a necessary step toward a more accessible, sustainable, and vibrant community. And I urge us to take action now to ensure that Beacon's future includes a safe and equitable transportation option for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Daniel. Daniel, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Daniel, tell us your last name and where you live, approximately.
Daniel Vatsky here. I'm a homeowner, resident in Ward 1 in Beacon. I'm just speaking tonight in support of the proposed covered bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue. I just think I've spoken before at the council, voicing this need for more robust bike infrastructure, and that Beacon should really make that one of its priorities. This would be a great opportunity to put that into action as we're building on a major thoroughfare and redesigning this area. And it seems like it would be a real missed opportunity to not include cycling infrastructure in that area. I also wanted to voice opposition to the alternate proposal to add on-street parking to Fishkill Avenue. It seems like we've already ceded so much public space on the streets to cars already, and that space could go to great use for cycling, for other uses. And we could ceding that space to cars just seems confusing to me at best. So I'm really in opposition to that, and that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And lastly, we have Nicole. You have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ben. This is Michal Mars, Ward 3 Beacon.
evening. I would like to reiterate Teresa's request for full minutes. And I really love the advocacy of the Bicycle Coalition, and I would encourage you to also advocate for full minutes that reflect in the public record the desire of the public to see bike lanes and master plans, because otherwise people come here every week, and if you're not going to watch the meeting, you don't know that people come here. It should be part of the minutes. It used to be part of the minutes prior to COVID, and it's really like a standard that all cities around us follow, so I would like to see us doing the same. Regarding 52, I live right off 52. I have been in touch with the committee, but I also wanted to just say here that it would be great to see better, stronger, not better, because I know there is a lot of work that goes into it, and I'm very grateful to President and his team, but stronger enforcement of trash removal on 52, where we actually have a lot of walkers. Like we have a lot of people from Edgewood that walk to the dollar store, and we have people that come to the, I don't remember what it's called, the thing that used to be on Main Street, the clinic. So for the people that are already using 52, that are already walking on 52, that are using their wheelchairs, they should be respected. There shouldn't be snow on the ground. There shouldn't be ice on the ground. There shouldn't be trash chewing all over. Like, get some trash cans in there. And it feels like that's not a heavy lift to do that. In terms of walking and biking infrastructure, I would love to see the Madawan path just as a bike and walking path for the kids. It would save money for the school district. They wouldn't need to give my daughter a bus to the high school because she would have a straight walking path. For kids like her, she's about to graduate, but kids that are going to the middle school as well. So that's it. Thank you so much. And I also wanted to say that in terms of the comp plan, we shouldn't be trying to solve everything before the comp plan, because the idea of having like a robust comprehensive plan is to get good public feedback, and we don't get enough feedback from people that don't organize with certain groups. So let's not solve everything, as we said here, before the comp plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ben?
More speakers on Zoom?
Okay, so that's the first opportunity for public comment. There is a second at the tail end of the meeting if you haven't spoken at this one. And now let's do a couple of public hearings. So the first one is, actually there's two public hearings concerning property tax exemptions. And so those two hearings, as they are on similar topics, I'm going to open both of them up concurrently and limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes combined for both proposed local laws. So I'm looking for a motion and a second that we combine those two public hearings.
Second.
All right, so that's Amber and Molly, all in favor of so doing so, say aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Thank you, Pam, I got that. So again, there's two of them. One concerns, they both are existing property tax exemptions. Nick, you're going to tell us a little bit more. One is for senior citizens and it's income-based, and the other one is for disabled persons that's also income-based. Will you give us a brief description, Nick, before we open it up?
I will, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening. So the city extends real property exemptions, as the Mayor indicated, to one, senior citizens age 65 and older with limited income, set forth in the Beacon City Code, Chapter 199, Section 199-1, and also to disabled persons with limited incomes in Section 199-11. These exemptions are pursuant to New York State law, and what the city is doing with these two local laws is updating the exemption amounts to be consistent with the amounts offered by Dutchess County. And in this case, it's done on a sliding scale based upon your income, and it's increasing right now. The limitation is no less than 20,500, 50% reduction. That's being increased so that those whose annual income is 41,600 or less get a 50% exemption from their assessed value as allocated against their city and county taxes only. And then the exemption phases out to 0% if you earn $50,000 or more. And those exemption amounts are the same for both the senior citizen and the disabled persons with limited income. That, Mayor, is a brief summary.
Great. Thank you, Nick. And I just want to put into the record, apparently I didn't need a motion to open the public hearing, but we have one on record. I need one to close one. So having said that, let's see who's on the list. To talk on the public hearing on tax exemptions, I have Teresa Kraft signed up.
So you combine both, right? But
Yeah.
you've lowered the number of minutes. I just want to, I know this is not part of it, and I have something for the public hearing, but stop interrupting the speakers at the podium when they're with that time countdown. It's very disruptive to the speaker's train of thoughts, and it takes time, 15 seconds. You're already eating up my 5 seconds. Thank you. And again, I thought the city did not vote on public hearing items in the same meeting as a resolution vote. So back to the public hearing. I'm all for the supporting the new local law for the handicap, people with limited incomes, disability. But regarding the senior citizens tax exemptions, can this be based on the length of residency? We are already seeing large numbers of new residents relocating to Beacon from all over to cash in on the action here. I would like to see longstanding residents receive this benefit first before it is capped off if there is a limit to the number of allowable applicants to apply. Either way, I'd like to see this based on the number of years residing in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to talk on this public hearing regarding exemptions? Anyone online, Ben?
Yes, we do have one hand raised on Zoom, and then we call your list whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ben. So I'm also in support of this proposal to basically bring the exemption limit up to date to current market values of income. I do have a concern that we don't have a good idea of how much money this will cost us. So it sounded a little bit hand-wavy in the meeting when the city employees were talking about it, and it just gives me concern because when you look at 2018 Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress, we had 43% of our residents making less than $50,000. Now we all know that with rapid gentrification, that has changed a lot in Beacon. But if I know we lost the fiscal watchdog we had on the council, in Dutchess County, but if I was fiscally watched to be, then I would try to get an estimate of how much this would cost and whether we have that money before signing off on this. Again, I'm in support, but cautiously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online?
No further hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so I will take a motion to close these two public hearings.
Motion. Second.
So that's Molly and Amber. And again, these are the hearings on exemptions for seniors and disabled and raising the income limits. All in favor for closing those public hearings, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, Pam. Okay, so the other public hearing is for the Community Development Block Grant Program. I will open the public hearing and first ask Chris to just explain briefly to the public what's it for.
So as we discussed last week, we are applying for CDBG funding again in 2025. As part of that application, we're required to hold a public hearing. We're proposing to replace 560 linear feet of sidewalk on Walcott Avenue, 9D, between South Avenue and Forrestal Heights for an approximate cost of $199,000. We will have to have our application in by March 3rd, so we're putting plans together. We have the estimate, and one of the other requisite items is a resolution from the City Council and this public hearing. So you'll see, once we close the public hearing, you also have that authorization on as number 6 on the agenda.
Okay.
We did publish the eligibility map that you had asked for, which is in the packet.
Thank you.
All right, so opening the public hearing, the first one on the list is Teresa Kraft.
This resolution in its current form may be viewed as lacking transparency. While updating our infrastructure is essential, it does not adequately address the pressing issue of moderate to low-income housing addressed in that grant. Improvements to sidewalks and other infrastructure will benefit all the residents of Beacon, but we need to confront the core issues directly. Affordable housing should be our top priority. The state grant also highlights the importance of public facilities, housing rehabilitation, and public services. We should allocate grant funds to restore and renovate the old firehouses, transforming them into valuable public facilities and services. Much of the rehabilitation work may be eligible for grandfathering, which could help streamline the process. Remember how much money the city was going to save by rebuilding what is now our firehouse? So let's finish these roads, and I know we're not going to start any more sidewalks, so let's focus on public facilities, services, and low-income and moderate housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christine, are you still here?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm reading for Sergei Krasikov, Ward 3, who couldn't be here. I want to express my support for the City of Beacon pursuing community development block grants. My specific interests would be within public facilities and improvements categories such as repairs to existing or construction of new sidewalks, crosswalks, curb cuts, bike-friendly features, and bus shelters to improve pedestrian connections. Improvements to existing facilities, municipal parks, and recreation areas, particularly handicapped accessible improvements. Improvements designed to mitigate flooding and improve the resiliency of critical infrastructure, facilities, neighborhoods, and housing. But any of the other categories that grant would support will be great benefit to our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in person on this public hearing? And then Ben, anyone online?
No hands raised on Zoom.
All right, so I'll take a motion to close the public hearing on 2025 Community Development Block Grant.
Motion?
Second.
So that's Molly and George. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pam?
Yes, I.
Thank you. Okay. That takes care of our 2 public hearings. Let's do reports. Start with Molly and work our way around. We'll get to Pam after George.
Great. So I have office hours coming up on Friday, February 14th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Bank Square Coffee House. If you're interested in talking with me and can't make that time, you can always reach out to me over my city email address so we can find another time to connect. I also want to thank the Beacon's Elks Lodge for hosting their annual First Responder Awards Dinner, which several of us on City Council had the opportunity to attend this past weekend. It was great to celebrate members of our shared first responder community, both within Beacon and without, and particularly within Beacon, we were able to celebrate members of our Beacon Fire Department, our Police Department, and our Beacon Volunteer Ambulance Corps. So our appreciation goes out to all those who are members of those places, along with the Elks Lodge, for putting together a lovely event. And I'll pass it to Jeff.
Thanks, Molly. appreciate everyone coming out to give comment tonight about enhancing bike culture in Beacon. I'm an avid biker. Have been doing bike programs for years, so have had some conversation, but looking forward to more in-depth conversations with the coalition about how to do this, including physical infrastructure, but also some cultural changes to really promote an idea that this is a bikeable community. Very much agree that things have to change to make people feel more confident and safe on bikes. But thank you again for all the comments tonight. And I just am very appreciative of everyone making public comments. We're in a time where people need to be engaged and make comment and come out and talk about what's going on. I'm very much in favor of providing easy access and reducing hurdles for those conversations. I'll repeat that there is still on the Beacon City Council page a link to surveys where people can respond to about almost 10 questions and prompts. We've received some excellent feedback from people. It's a great place to document your concerns and share your thoughts with us on prompted questions. It's likely to change soon in conversation with the council. We'll talk about some questions that might be appropriate for some upcoming tasks. Very keen, I remain keen, and we'll have some conversations about ways to have more transparency and to provide opportunities for people to provide insight on things that are in discussion. I very much appreciate the long list of topics that was shared with us in our workshop last week about projects that are underway, in consideration or planned. It's a very big list. There's a lot that we can talk about. So I'm looking forward for ways that we can, as a council, have constructive conversation and give opportunities for people to know what's under works and to comment on it, to give guidance. I'll pass it over to Amber.
+1 for the Elks and first responders. That was a lovely evening, and I appreciate the opportunity. The only thing I just want to remind people of is that the Martin Luther King Jr. birthday celebration was postponed due to bad weather, and so that is coming up on its bad weather date, which is February 17th. So that is a Monday. That is another holiday, so I believe most people are off. The schedule is the same. The parade would begin around 9:30, and that would start at Mattie Cooper Square, followed by celebration services, lunch, all sorts of other festivities happen that day. So hope to see folks there and hope that it is not as cold as it would have been had it taken place as scheduled. So February 17th. Thank you.
Thanks, Amber. I am saying Happy Lunar New Year to anyone who celebrates, which is this past Wednesday, and also save the date for the upcoming Saturday, February 22nd, Beacon Spring Celebration of Light. This is a annual festival that celebrates the coming of spring, Lunar New Year, light, hope, warmth, renewal, and kids. And thank you to the city for supporting this event over the last few years, including our Chief Figlia. So that gathering is on February 22nd, gathering at Pole Hill Park at 5:30 and parading the length of Main Street at 6 p.m. The parade concludes at the Yard on the end of Main Street and Herbert for a celebration at 6:30 with music, activities, food, both for free and for purchase. And additionally, there will be one more free lantern making workshop for families, kids, or just individuals this coming Sunday at the Beacon Farmers Market. And I hope to see many of you there. Also sharing that there is a transportation safety action plan survey that's being promoted by the county. While there is much that the city can and will do to support safe transportation across the city, major pieces of that project, including our bus system, are administered by the county. So advocating on that level is also important. The survey can be found at surveymonkey.com/r/DCSAP. I have completed that survey. It only takes 5 or 7 minutes to complete and is a hopefully helpful tool for moving our transportation forward. My open office hours are continuing on second Sundays of the month. That is this coming Sunday, February 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. and the following Sunday, March 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. all at Trax Coffee on 1 East Main. Thanks.
Good evening. Nothing significant to report as yet, but I would like to urge all people in Ward 4 to please reach out to me as your recent representative here on council. I could be reached via email, and I'm certainly welcome to meet with anybody in person concerning any issues or concerns that they have relative to Ward 4. Thank you all.
Pam, can you join in?
A little scratchy, but thank you for having this opportunity to be virtual. I also attended the First Responders Dinner Saturday. Thank you to our first responders and ELS for hosting. Also wanted to announce Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee. They're having their monthly meeting this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at City Hall, where you guys are sitting. And also, mark or adjust your calendars. A new date that is going to stick for March 9th for the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee Community Feedback Session, which will be from 2 to 5 p.m. that day on March 9th at Industrial Arts Event Space. There is an agenda posted on their City Beacon Committee website, which on the City Beacon website, you go to Government, Board and Committees, and you'll find their committee link. And also, while you're on the City of Beacon website, there's a link on the homepage for workforce housing and affordable that's available at several locations. So if you think you might be eligible for that and in need, check that out. Also, kind of want to I wasn't going to say this tonight, but there's a few people who said it. Just is there possibilities to improve our council minutes? Any kind of AI help to do that would be greatly appreciated. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. I don't have to talk about the Elks. It's been said 3 times. Our police officers looked especially dapper at that event, including Lieutenant Confield and Chief Figlio. The only thing I would add is just a point of information. I recall the Fishkill Avenue Committee discussing the possibility of parking on 52. It wasn't, at least the discussion I heard, was not to supplant bikes, but to actually create a barrier between the road and the bikes. I believe the section that they were discussing was the section where the tracks are directly adjacent to Route 52. Given that adjacency, it's extremely easy to have the bike lanes and the pedestrians on the rail trail, put a row of cars in between, and create that spacing and additional safety. So I just wanted to point that out as a point of information. Otherwise, I'll let it go to the city administrator.
I just have 2 quick things. Hudson River Housing was supposed to come tonight. We have rescheduled them for the next voting meeting, and we announced this last week, but I'll remind people we're sending out the second and final notice on the water meter transmitter upgrades. So if you haven't already scheduled the upgrade of your transmitter, please do reach out to the city. The numbers and the website link are on our website, which is beaconny.gov. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's do our resolutions. The first one is appointing Anthony Lombardo to the position of police officer. Chief, do you want to come up?
Sure. So first, thank you guys, everybody who was able to attend on Saturday. That really was lovely. And then Lieutenant Confield was here on a couple of other matters, and it was great to have him be able to come up because he's been working very hard for us to get these hires in the door and processed. It's been taking up a tremendous amount of his time, so I'm glad he was able to come for this one. So tonight I'm very pleased to be have another candidate here for the position of police officer. Anthony Lombardo is 24 years old. He's resided in this area his whole life, having been born and raised just to the south of us in Cold Spring, New York, where he attended Haldane High School. Anthony is currently a police officer with NYPD, and prior to that worked as a laborer, a carpenter, and as a foreman for a property management firm. He also engaged in significant volunteer work in his local community, to include organizing meals for homeless shelters and participating in Polar Plunge to raise money for the Special Olympics. As with all of our candidates, Mr. Lombardo passed our background check, a process which includes interviewing neighbors and associates. checking into the individual's finances and social media, checking into their criminal, domestic, academic, and employment history, and among other things, passing a rigorous psychological and polygraph examination. We're looking forward to hiring Mr. Lombardo and bringing him on board soon to continue to address our ongoing staffing issues.
Okay. Any comments, questions from the council?
Not a question, but just appreciation that we've had several new officers join us over the past couple of weeks, and I hope that that trend continues, and I'm sure you do too.
As
So.
do I, for sure.
So thank you, thank you.
To clarify, I believe Officer Lombardo would be joining us for field training, if we approved him, more or less right away, kind of the timing of that, when people might see him out on the streets, if you know that yet.
It would probably be in the next couple of weeks. He's currently employed now, so he has to give notice to his current job, and then there's
Makes
a little bit
sense. Great, thank you.
of little lag time. So.
Okay. I just want to thank the chief and Lieutenant Confield. I know you're working hard at it, and we look forward to welcoming you aboard, but just wait a minute. Do we have a motion and a second on this one? We don't yet. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
So that's
Second.
Amber and Molly to appoint Anthony Lombardo to the position of police officer. Any further discussion? All right, so all in favor of so doing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I heard Pam, thank you. Anyone opposed? Look at that. Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right, the second one is appointing Corey Worthman to the position of Acting Building Inspector 2. Can I get a motion and a second for Corey?
Motion.
Second.
So that's Amber and Molly. And Chris, anything you want to add on Corey before we go to a vote on that?
Yes. The current building inspector 2 is Bruce Flower, and he's leaving on Friday. We have already canvassed the civil service list from Dutchess County, and we have interviews scheduled for Thursday. But there is going to be a lag time to get someone in, so we are proposing to make Corey Worthman the acting building inspector 2. Corey had actually done that position over in Ulster County, is eligible for it, and he'll be filling in after Bruce leaves on Friday if you approve it.
Okay.
I had just wanted clarity on the 2 part of the building inspector. Is that because of the level of complexity within the city of Beacon? I wasn't sure of the full range of options for building inspector the state offers.
It's just the position title in Dutchess County Civil Service. So I don't know if it has to do with the size of the municipality or the level, but it's essentially the top position in the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll do building inspector is for town, and then building inspector 2 will be for cities. They do things that I don't always know the background of.
Chris, can you just clarify how many interviews are scheduled for Thursday and how they came about? Was it like an active interest?
There's a civil service list that we have to go from. So there's a test that's administered for this. There were 7 people on the test. We sent out what's called a canvas letter to say, are you interested? We had 3 responses. We have done 2, we'll schedule 2 interviews out of that. 1 we interviewed previously, and we're not going to interview again.
All right. So let's move to a vote unless any other comments. So all in favor of appointing Corey Worthman to Acting Building Inspector 2, say aye.
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 Thank you, Pam. Anyone opposed? All right. So the third one, I'm looking for a motion and a second to authorize the city administrator to execute a license agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension regarding the green team and their use of the rec center.
Motion.
Second.
So that was Paloma and Jeff. And Nick, you're going to tell us something about this?
I am, Mayor. Thank you. So this is, as you indicated, a license agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension in connection with their green team program that is administered in the city. And it's a license agreement for use of certain space in the recreation center building. It's for a 1-year term. The agreement provides for 4 renewals, and it's for $3,000 a year. also able to be terminated by the city on 30 days notice, and there are other standard provisions regarding insurance and indemnification. This is really a renewal of a pre-existing agreement that provides for extensions going into the future.
All right. Any comments, questions by the council?
Got a non sequitur just to say I appreciate Nick's connection tonight. I think he's on his phone, and it's much better than previous, so that was an improvement. Stick with this, Nick.
Thank you.
Cool. That's a good point. All right.
Good job, Pete.
So, all in favor of authorizing the city administrator to execute a license agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I heard Pam. Thank you very much. Anyone opposed? All right, let's do 4 and 5 separately. So the first one is a resolution raising the limits for property tax exemptions for senior citizens. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So that's Molly and Amber. Nick, anything you would add that we didn't discuss in the public hearing opening?
Nothing new. There was one comment with respect to a potential modification from a resident of New York State law to not permit that to be offered to some, but not everyone. It was offered to everyone on the same basis, regardless of residency.
I appreciate.
Years of residency.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. The other question that I heard was, what's the financial impact of this? I don't know the answer to that, and I don't like doing stuff I don't know the answer to, but I can tell you from experience it's an extremely small number, right? So it doesn't tend to be a large number of exemptions.
My understanding, too, from conversations when Kathy, our tax assessor, was here, was that our total tax base stays the same, but depending how many people qualify, how we divide that up changes. Is that accurate, or we actually get less money in?
No, so the levy is the levy. So when we approve a budget, there's a total bill that's called the levy. That's around $13–14 million. And then it's just a question of how it's divvied up, right? And so if there's 100 properties and 2 of them are only taxed at half the rate, that means you effectively have 99 properties and all of the properties get 100 over 99, their share of that. No, I'm sorry, 1 over, see if I get this right, 1 over 99, yeah, that's right, as opposed to 1 over 100, right? So it's divvied up amongst the rest of the community for a slightly greater amount that is not collected from those taxpayers.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to ask, do we know if Dutchess County is going to be increasing this amount? Because the state has it where the sliding scale can go up to, I guess it's like 57,500. However, it just so happened I got 2 property tax exemption information postcards in the mail tonight, one for Fishkill property and one for Beacon property, and they're both pretty much exactly the same, and they're saying that it could be not to exceed 58,400, so I'm not sure. It does say, there is an asterisk saying maybe lower depending on the municipality and the school district, but I'm wondering if we can find out from the county before we vote on this, if they are considering raising their figure before we lock into this amount, and it's not their current one if we want to stay on pace with the county.
I don't know what their current plans are, but they did update it, and I believe that was a year ago, when pursuant to changes in state law, they updated to what it currently is, but I can't speak to what they may or may not do in the future.
Okay.
And the intent of this, Pam, was to bring this into conformance with their rate. And I understand that the school district may be looking to raise theirs because their threshold is now below ours, or would be below ours. It's helpful when all the taxing jurisdictions pick the same number. And I wouldn't expect after just a year that they would update it again.
Okay, because it just seemed like the state may have increased in a year's time. Because I was looking at the form that's involved in applying, and it's a little, actually, I guess it does have the 58,400, on there, but yeah, we're just less than that.
Yeah, there's a higher tier, and the county chose to go to the second highest tier. So we're just matching that.
And Mayor, could I just clarify maybe a little bit further what Molly was asking and the example that you gave? Yeah. So it's, looking at the table, the most that somebody would be exempt from their assessment would be half of it. So it wouldn't even be that full one that would need to be distributed. It would be like a fraction of a percentage of, like, in some cases, it could be like 0.05%. That's right. It's a sliding, it's not like people are not paying any taxes at all. It's a sliding scale of the exemption. And so the distribution is, as you mentioned, fairly light when you start to break into the percentages.
Yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out. I used a very simple example.
Yes, which was probably for the best.
Right, I only picked 100 taxpayers, 2 that had the exemption, and both were at the 50%. But as you correctly say, that's the maximum, and in fact, the likely average is somewhere south of that, right?
And Mayor, I have some additional information. I looked at the county tax code. They adopted their law in May of 23, and their law provides that effective March 1st, 2025, their income limit increased to what the city would be adopting, so it will be exactly consistent with the city and the county.
Yeah, I found the same thing on their E-code, so thanks for confirming, Nick.
All right.
Thank you.
So the only other thing I would request, and Chris, if you could pass this along, is to ask our assessor to keep track of where the county and the school district are and to update us when there might be changes. The other thing is I'm pretty sure that the assessor can also tell us the current impact of the current rates on our assessment, not the new ones, but the current one, because it's very straightforward to say this is the total tax base excluding exemptions, and this is the tax base including those exemptions. So she has that data available. If she could forward that to the council somewhere along the way, that'd be great.
And just one clarification, my understanding that the Beacon School District does not extend the exemptions to senior citizens with limited incomes or for the disabled persons exemption. It's just the county and the city.
So that means it affects only the bill that goes out, that just went out, right? The county and city bill, and not the school district and library bill.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Since we're talking about timing, I also wanted to point out that you will apply for this exemption before the end of the month, but it won't affect your current bill. It will affect your following tax bill.
2026.
Your 2026 tax bill.
Right. Well, if you have the current, if you've already applied for it, you'll get the exemption at the lower rate, the current rate. And then if you haven't applied, you'll get it at the new rate in the next bill.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's great information.
And how are we defining seniors? Is that 65 in it?
Correct, yes, that's what the law provides.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this or comments?
The only thing I was wondering, is this something that could be put on the Board of Assessment page? Like, it's easier to find this? I mean, I don't know if that's possible. It was not that easy to find. I know on this postcard it's saying contact the local assessor, and it does have Kathy Martin's address, work address and city phone number.
Yeah,
Okay.
we already have a resources section of that page, so if this could be added.
Yeah, we can add it.
Thanks, Pam.
That'd be great.
Okay. Are we all set? All right, so all in favor of adopting local law number 1 concerning property tax exemptions for senior citizens, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I heard Pam. Anyone opposed? All right, so that's unanimous. And then the second one is the same law, but for disabled persons with limited income.
Motion.
So that's Amber.
Second.
And Paloma. Any further discussion on this other than what we learned in the first one?
So the same would apply, what you described with the levy and the applicability to how it would work if someone qualified for this.
That's right. And I'll go looking when we see our next budget for those dollar amount differences. Yeah, they do appear. So, and it's literally because of this. Okay, so All in favor of
Just one
adopt-
correction,
I'm
just,
sorry.
Molly didn't catch this, I'm surprised, but on page 16 of the packet, after 50,000, you need or more added to that.
And you will make that, that's a scrivener's error, so we don't need to amend it, and we'll correct that.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, all in favor of adopting local law 2 concerning property tax exemptions for disabled persons with limited income, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I heard Pam. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. And the last resolution is authorizing an application for the Community Block Development Grant for 2025. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion, second.
So Paloma and Molly. And this, we have the public hearing on, so Chris, there isn't much more to add, right?
I don't.
Okay. So this is, the dollar amount is approximately $199, is that what we're going
Yeah,
for?
and that, the reason we're aiming for that amount is we usually get an allocation right around 200,000. So it's not like we can apply for housing and get $2 million. We're limited to $200,000. And that's why we try to choose a segment of sidewalk that's in a low-income neighborhood. Again, we've been rebuilding South Avenue, West Center Street, and both sides of South Avenue, and now we're moving around the corner to Wolcott. So we have to pick an area within the eligible areas on the map that's in the packet.
Okay. All right, any other comments on this one?
I'll just say that I did appreciate the comments and the sentiment of the comments in the public hearing, at the same time that I do think that this is the right project to move forward with this round of the CDBG grant. But I'll note that I hope that the workshop conversation that we started to preview last week in listing out all of the city's major projects and potentially including a sidewalk plan of sorts will mean that as these grant cycles come forward into the future, there's going to be greater transparency about what the city is considering and also potentially more robust discussion about each of those projects as they're sort of queued up. But I'm fully in support of this grant and moving forward with this right now.
I'll add that I appreciate the map that you added this time, Chris and Ben, kind of playing that out. I think we've talked about those areas of eligibility before, so seeing it out. I also say that it's great that you've teed up these projects, because I believe at least the past couple of years, the timing of when this funding was actually published made it challenging for lots of other places who essentially didn't apply for anything at all, because it just was such a quick turnaround. So the fact that you and Ben and the city staff have been able to turn around on these and get funding for these pieces of infrastructure is great.
Thanks. And I would thank the city engineer, John Russo. That he's the key.
Thank you for naming him specifically.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is the use of these funds for capital projects means that the impact of those dollars lasts for years and years and years. And I think that's why it's the appropriate thing to do. Okay. All in favor of authorizing an application for the 2025 CDBG grant funding, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I heard Pam. Anyone opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. I am now looking for a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January 21st.
Motion.
Second.
So that was
Paloma got
Molly and Paloma. Good night, Jeff. As always, thank you for being
Maybe I
here.
have really scintillating things to say that he's just going to miss now.
All right, so now is the time to have that discussion on minutes that just the paper's going to miss. What do you got?
I don't actually have one this time, but it's the theory behind it. So.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes of January 21, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And I did hear Pam. Okay, this is the second opportunity for public comment. If you did not speak at the first one and would like to do so now, this is your opportunity. I don't see anyone in the physical crowd who wants to make a comment. Ben, anyone in the online crowd?
Not online.
All right, so the next meeting will be next Monday, February 10th at 7 p.m. It will be a workshop, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
So that was Amber and Paloma, all in favor? Aye. And I heard Pam again. Amazingly, the motion to adjourn was unanimous. Good night, all.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick and Pam. Feel better, Pam.
Okay.